Welcome. I'm just... Okay. So we're just a little bit running behind time, so we're going to start things off. I'd like to welcome you all this evening. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting, including the gallery, may be captured as part of this recording. I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of the land on which we are meeting, pay respects to their elders past and present, and to any of their descendants who may be with us here tonight. And as councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire, and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. So to start things off, are there any apologies? No? Any conflicts of interest? So before we go on, I'm going to actually introduce an urgent business item. Given the announcement today by Murray Goulburn, I would like to introduce an item of urgent business into the agenda to discuss Council's response to the closure of the Murray Goulburn factory at Kiwatangambalanga. Could I have a councillor move that Council's response to the closure of the Murray Goulburn factory be included in the agenda as urgent business? Move Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded Councillor Murdoch. Okay, so a vote. All those in favour? Okay, no dissent, thank you. As a matter of urgent business, I raise the issue of today's announcement by Murray Goulburn that it will close the Kiwatangambalanga processing plant with the loss of 140 jobs. This is sudden and shocking news. Murray Goulburn announced that 3 factories will close, with the Kiwatangam factory being closed in stages by the first quarter of the 2019 financial year, and starting in the first stage in 3 months' time in August. The impact of this decision on families and the Kiwatangambalanga community will be absolutely devastating. I've been in touch with all levels of government today on this issue to see what support we can provide for the staff who will be unemployed and their families. Murray Goulburn is our second largest food manufacturer and employer in this shire. The manufacturing sector provides 29% of all jobs in Indigo Shire. The dairy industry has significant economic and employment linkages both up and down the value chain from the processor. We are still trying to quantify what the impacts will be of the closure of the Murray Goulburn processing plant, but it will run into millions of dollars. The Murray Goulburn plant is the engine of the Kiwatangambalanga community, generating valuable economic activity. The town has been built around it. It's been there for 125 years. Its closure will have a devastating impact on everybody. Accordingly, I seek Council's endorsement tonight to call a public meeting on this issue and invite relevant federal and state government MPs, Murray Goulburn representatives and key stakeholders, including staff representatives, to discuss how we can play a role in support of those impacted so suddenly by this decision. The flow-on effect of this news will have far-reaching ramifications, both economically and socially, on the Kiwatangambalanga community. So, could I call on a councillor to move that a public meeting be called as proposed? Thank you, Councillor Goldsworthy. Seconded, Councillor Murdoch. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion that I've put?
I'd like to speak to the motion.
Certainly.
Murray Goulburn have behaved in an unconscionable way, initially by trying to force dairy farmers to repay money that they had already received for supplying milk. This effectively amounted to requiring suppliers to provide milk at a below cost. The tactic didn't work, and now Murray Goulburn have decided to stick it to their workers and the local community. This is extremely disappointing and will drastically affect the local community, and my sympathies to their employees. Only time will tell as to if their shareholders will now hold the Murray Goulburn board to account.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Certainly, Councillor Murdoch.
I'm disappointed in this decision, naturally, but it's the people that we have to think of, and we have to remember that it's not just the employees, it's also their families, their children, it's the town itself, the children obviously go to the schools. This is going to be a devastating effect for Tangambalanga, and I think rightly that we're trying to do the right thing and make sure that we're supporting that community.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gaffney.
I think it's very sad that the second biggest employer in Indigo Shire is about to close its doors. It's not just 140 jobs, it's 140 families. There's a major new subdivision, over 450 blocks, about to be opened at Kiewa Tangambalanga. The flow-on effect for the community, not just in Kiewa Tangam, but right across the northeast, will be significant.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak to that motion? Councillor Trenery.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, our focus moving forwards must be on the town and the community. The effect of these people not buying goods in the local stores will affect those stores directly, and how many kids they employ in those stores, and they'll have a dramatic effect on the town. So the ongoing effect, economic effect, should be what we're focusing on rather than the decision. The decision's been made. I know Danone's staying there, which is absolutely fantastic, and anything we can do to help promote them as a council would be absolutely fantastic, but I think our focus should be on the town moving forwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further comments? All right, thank you. So I take a vote on that motion. All those in favour of the public meeting? No one against. Thank you. I have to remember the vote thing. Okay. All right, so we're moving to open forum, and I think we've got questions from 4 members of the community tonight. So I'm going to start with Ed Tyree. Ed got his questions in first. So Ed, if you'd like to put your 3 questions.
Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Thanks, Ed.
Shall I start again?
Yeah.
As I say, I was privileged to be at a meeting on ageing issues yesterday of 25 seniors from across Indigo Shire. A wide range of issues were discussed, and highlighting the importance of ageing in the community, particularly the statistics were given about Indigo Shire and the increase in the population of seniors coming to the Shire to live. This was the first of 3 meetings aimed at educating people and bringing important matters into the public arena, particularly given the impact of the elderly in this municipality. Education in the form of disseminating information regarding the ageing process and the assistance available appears to be at the very heart of this issue. That was very, very evident at yesterday's meeting. The series of meetings organised by you 3A are an important part of the route to a wiser and more knowledgeable community on this issue. At the last council meeting on the 28th of March, Councillor Murdoch responded to a question in relation to the $100,000 age-friendly grant that council was seeking the appointment of a consultant to facilitate the process. I understand terms of reference were promulgated, and I've now seen them. They were forwarded to me today, and a consultant appointed. Will council update the community on the appointment of the consultant to conduct this important project and provide a strategic outlook as to the outcomes?
Okay, so I'll respond to that, Ed. Indigo Shire has received funding through the Department of Health and Human Services to develop this age-friendly strategy. The funding of $100,000 is split into 2 parts. So $20,000 is to develop the strategy and $80,000 is to commence the implementation of that strategy. This project will enable council to plan for the needs of a significant ageing population over the coming 5 to 15 years to make a positive difference to the health, well-being and overall quality of life of our local elderly residents. And the key strategic objective of the project is to foster positive attitudes regarding ageing and to investigate opportunities to mainstream age thinking right across our various functions at council. So the project's being managed by a project committee which is made up of council officers and representatives from Bendigo Health, Indigo North Health, University of the Third Age and the Upper Hume Primary Care Partnership. Local senior citizens groups are also involved. So the project will look to, anyway, the council doesn't have the internal resources to develop the strategy ourselves, and that's the $20,000, and therefore has appointed an experienced consultant to work with the project committee and to draft the strategy. Max Hardy Consulting is the appointed consultant. He has extensive experience in the aged sector and in the development of strategies. He developed the aged strategy for Albury Council in 2008 and in recent times has developed council plans for a number of local governments. This project will include an extensive consultation phase, so you'll get plenty of opportunity to be involved.
Thanks for that, Mayor.
Okay.
My second question is in relation to the Stanley Township. The annual Council Action Plan 2016-17 indicates that the progress on this item at item 4.10.7 is on track. The report indicates the Stanley Amendment to be exhibited in April. I'm not sure I know what that exhibit was. The draft council plan for the next 4 years indicates a strategy of completion of the Stanley Township project. Can you provide an update as to the progress on this item?
Okay, so the consultants have developed the draft amendment documentation and are attempting to resolve last-minute details with Golden Murray Water prior to submitting the documentation to the Minister for Planning to seek authorisation to then exhibit the amendment.
Is there a time limit or time expectation?
I'd have to take that. CEO? Are we talking weeks? Sorry, yeah.
Through the Mayor, we would expect the last-minute details to be concluded in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and then the documentation forwarded to the Minister straight after that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
In relation to the item on the agenda tonight,
Sure.
bulk water extraction planning scheme amendment partnership with Alpine Shire and Toowong Shire, I think you are to be congratulated on the progress made on this agenda item since the last item, because I think we've progressed in a good way. My understanding of the answers provided to previous questions on notice on this term is that there would be an involvement with a widened network of municipalities that gave in principle support to the issues. Councillors may have seen the letter in the Board of Mail last week on the 28th of April under the heading "How Many More?" If you haven't, I've got a copy with me, in which a resident of Morang South Alpine Shire confirms another bore extracting water for bottling on a neighbouring property and advises a further bore outside of Myrtleford, which is we can confirm that we've heard that too. Would Council advise the current situation regarding the wider support for this issue?
So, Ed, tonight in the Council agenda, there's an item seeking Council's endorsement for an approach to the Minister for Planning, seeking authorisation for us to join with Toowong and Alpine Shires to prepare a planning scheme amendment to insert a new policy into each of those shires' local planning policy framework. Such a policy would provide greater control over the impacts of water extraction sites. And just to give you an update on that, I was to meet with Ron Janus tomorrow. That meeting is being postponed, so just because somebody who's very relevant is not there this week. So as soon as we've had that meeting, I'm happy to let you know what the outcome of that is.
Can I just clarify something?
Sure.
The agenda item,
Yep.
and the paper asking for recommendation indicates there's 2 attachments,
Right.
and I couldn't find those attachments. I just wonder what it refers to, the agenda item.
Sorry, Red. I haven't got it in front of me.
I've got it in front of me now. It says 1-2 PP 140001 Water Extraction Kew Springs County Report, May 2015. 2 draft local planning policy groundwater extraction for bottling. It says there, it indicates their attachments.
Yes, I've got them here. One's on page. Oh, you've printed off the agenda. If you look at it online, Ed, the attachments are there on the page 287.
Right, I will.
Yeah, you'll
Thank
be
you.
able to find them online. They
Not as
obviously
clever as I
didn't
thought it
print
was.
off.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Ed. And next is Margie Barwood. Hello, Margie, how are you?
Hi, Madam Mayor.
Do you want to pull that down so you can?
Down. Got it?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
okay. Actually, with the extra agenda, I have a third question, but I prefer to ask that first. That
Okay,
refers to that agenda.
which agenda?
The extra you added to the agenda with relation to the dairy farmers.
Oh,
So I have have the Indigo Shire considered if free milk, and I'd like to add fruit as well, local fruit, were subsidised by government, there would be healthier, less obese youth in our communities and possibly a burden on health, less of a burden on health services for low-income budget families and community health. When I was a child, there were free milk at all schools and the children were indeed much healthier.
Okay, well, thanks, Margie. Because you hadn't submitted that one, I can't answer. We don't have...
But because you will be tabling that and holding the community meeting, I would like that as a suggestion.
Sure.
That would require work from council up.
Okay, so we'll take that one on notice.
Yep.
And just to fill you in on that, we do have a food policy that's being looked at in our council plan all around healthy eating. So
Yep.
you can have a look at that in the and add in your comments there. That would be great.
Thank
So,
you.
next question.
Okay. With respect to the Indigo Shire fleet cars, I would like to ask if the cars that are garaged have specific use guidelines or are the users given unlimited use?
Okay, well, would you like to answer that, CEO?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I guess what we're assuming, Margie, is that you're referring to the fleet cars that are home garaged, that
Yes,
some members of
the
staff-
number is listed here.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So look, there's basically there's two categories of use. There's what we call tool of trade use, and there's commuter use, and well, in fact there's three. And there's a full private use component, but essentially those categories of use determine what an individual can and can't do. So essentially, with the exception of full private use vehicles, the tool of trade and commuter use vehicles have very stringent limitations around how they can...
Does the user contribute to the costs?
For both commuter
They have fuel cards.
for both commuter use and for full private use, yes, the individuals make substantial contributions towards it.
Okay, so
Okay.
Margie, I'll get you to ask the next question.
Okay.
Yeah, go,
Did,
that's fine.
did the Indigo Shire organise and fund the travel costs for the boomerang bag representatives at the Plastic Wise screening and community meeting presentation at Yakandanda on the 4th of March 2017?
Well, I can answer that, Margie. No.
No.
Indigo Shire didn't, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so do you know who did fund it? There were people there...
People got themselves there under their own, as we all did, under our own transport. And the only cost to the Shire was that we provided some refreshments for everybody at the meeting. So there was no...
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Alan Pleitner. And Alan, I think you've got 2 questions.
Thank you. A commercial business in this Shire initially had one red and one yellow normal sized bin with a weekly pickup.
Yep.
When the green bins were introduced with fortnightly pickup for the red bin and the yellow bin, an order was placed for a larger red top and a larger yellow top bin. The business person then had to order a larger red and a second larger red bin and a second larger yellow bin because the fortnightly pickup was insufficient. The business person was told that the extra red top bin and the extra yellow top bin would not be supplied unless the business had 2 green top bins. The business is to be billed for both the extra bins, even though the business has no need for the extra green top bin, as the one already allocated to the business meets the needs of that business. When did Council set this inflexible and illogical policy, which is imposing unnecessary expense on this business when we are seeing so many businesses closing in this Shire?
Okay, so Alan, I checked with our Director for Infrastructure, and the principle that those decisions are made on, there is flexibility, by the way, is that there not be a worse environmental outcome from the way the bins are allocated. So it doesn't have to be one for one, as you say in your example. So we probably need more detail from you around the particulars of what happened in this particular business. And so Ian's happy for you to ring him with those details, or the person themselves can ring Ian, because in fact there is case-by-case way of looking at this, so we're not sure why that decision was made the way it was. So we're happy to follow that up.
Thank you. I'll have the person contact Ian.
Yeah, contact Ian directly. And the next question, please, Alan.
Noting that in the draft Council Plan 2017-2020, Council plans to support the development and activation of the Old Beechworth Jail and Historic Precinct. Does the Council also plan to support such iconic businesses as Uncle Toby's and All Saints Winery, which are also privately owned?
Okay, so by support of development and activation of that precinct, what we're actually talking about is the historic precinct and the public space there. It's not about the actual private enterprise of that business. So that's our role in council. In terms of supporting the private activities of that business, we don't have any role in that. So it is about how the old Beechworth Jail precinct fits into the historic precinct of Beechworth.
Why then is the old Beechworth Jail specifically mentioned?
Because
That's
it's
my
part
point.
of that precinct,
Well,
of
why
the
isn't it
historic
just
precinct.
as the precinct?
Well, it's just being named as part of the precinct. It's a distinct part of it. So,
Thank you.
yeah, that's why. And thank you for your questions. Okay. So thank you to everyone. And we're moving into the business of the meeting. Deputations and petitions. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Open forum. Do we have any condolences tonight? Confirmation of minutes from the previous meetings. Do I have someone to move the minutes from the previous meeting? Moved Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Murdoch. Thank you. Okay. All those in favour? Carried. Deputations and petitions. Do we have any to be tabled tonight? No? All right, 10.1, the March Quarterly Performance and Finance Report. So, let's get to that. The recommendation is that Council adopts the third quarter performance and financial report, noting the progress against Council's A, Annual Council Plan Action List, B, the Advocacy Plan, C, the Operating Budget, and D, the Capital Works Program. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Trenery, someone to second it? Councillor Murdoch. Councillor Trenery, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do. I'm happy to take Councillor Gaffney's questions first.
I may not be asking a question, Madam Mayor.
Do you have a question, Councillor?
I do have a question.
This is a surprise. Yes.
I'm just working on the page. On page 22, which is the Capital Works, there seems to be a fairly large gap between the budget forecast and the actuals. Could you give an explanation for that?
I thank the councillor for the question without notice. As I understand it, at the end of the financial year, there's a prediction of, I think it's 1.9, and these figures I'm doing off the top of my head, so $1.9 million shortfall in capital works, and that probably reflects that. And that could be partly because of weather, partly because projects haven't been funded, and I'm sure a director will correct me if that's not the case, but that's why there's a gap. So that $1.9 million, if I think that figure's right, will be carried over until next year.
Do you want to add?
Please confirm my figures were right.
Thank you, through the Mayor. Look,
Sure.
I think the figure's 1.3 and
Close.
close. It's probably worth commenting a large portion of that is identified as, I guess, deferred works to support grant applications, so put on hold, identified in the mid-year budget review. So it's included in the forecast position, but won't be expended in the balance of this year, so it'll be carried forward.
All right. Councillor Goldsworthy.
It's fully explained on page 21 if the councillor cares to read it.
Thank you. Any further comments on the motion?
I was going to make a comment about the cash surplus, and the cash surplus being because of capital works that haven't been done, but I think that's been hashed out now, so I'm happy to commend the motion.
All right, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? None against? Carried. 10.2, the draft budget. So the recommendation is that Council endorses the attached 2017-18 draft budget for the purpose of Section 127 of the Local Government Act 1989. That we authorise the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of the preparation of the draft budget in accordance with Section 1291 of the Local Government Act 1989. And 3, we invite any person wishing to make a submission in relation to the proposed budget to do so prior to 2nd of June 2017 at 5 p.m. We schedule any person wishing to be heard in support of their submission to the proposed budget to be heard by Council at a special meeting of Council on the 6th of June 2017. And finally, we consider a recommendation to adopt the budget at the June ordinary meeting of Council on the 27th of June 2017. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have someone to second that? Councillor Trenery. Anyone against? All right, you can speak to it.
And I may have a question, Madam Mayor, depending on what's said.
All right, please speak to the motion, Councillor.
So there are a number of highlights in this draft budget of $8.2 million in capital works programs. It includes just lost my page. Let's see, it includes the Beechworth to Yackandandah and Osborne's Flat rail trail. It includes streetscape works to the Rutherglen Main Street, the Yackandandah Skate Park, the Waganya to Lake Mutamere rail trail, the solar facilities for Yackandandah and Beechworth pools, and the Upriver Road and Gurumata Road. So there are a number of highlights that are listed in the document. There is a proposed surplus of $2.35 million with a net cash decrease of $146,000. One concerning aspect is an underlying result of $1.8 million deficit. With a review of all council services and the development of a long-term financial plan, hopefully that'll rectify the situation in the long term. So with that, I commend this budget to the council.
Thank you. Do you want to speak to the motion, Councillor Trenery? Or do you want to speak as the seconder, or do you want to reserve your right? All right, Councillor Gaffney.
On page 152 of the agenda, which is page 51 of 91 of the budget, the council officers have recognised that there was an inconsistency or there was an error, and there's a new page on that page, which will be the new page that I'm referring to, and I'm sure when it goes out to the community, it will have that new page in it. It talks about asset renewal and the obligations of council. And I noticed that that obligation in the 2016-17 budget was 65.7%. In the 2017-18 budget, it's going to be 48.5%. And in the 2019-20 forecast, it's 37%. Is there any concern that council is not maintaining the assets as expected?
Who are you directing the question to, Councillor?
That's right, Councillor Trenery requested that he answer the question, Madam Mayor. Thanks. Thank you, Councillor Trenery.
Thank you, Councillor Gaffney, for your question without notice again. Happy to answer the question. Is there any concerns? I think that the long-term financial plan that Councillor Goldsworthy spoke about, it's essential to investigate these sort of things. There's obviously no concern from state government levels at our current rate at the moment, so I'm happy to look forward to the 5-year plan.
All right, does anyone else wish to speak to the motion?
I've got a second question, Madam Mayor.
Certainly, Councillor.
On page 172 of the agenda, which is page 71 of 91 of the budget, it talks about the Chiltern Industrial Employment Precinct, which is hoping for a federal grant of $171,000 and a private contribution from a Mr Brown of $120,000. It's my understanding that under section 223 that item has gone out for public consultation and submissions and hasn't been approved by council. I'm just a bit concerned as to whether the contribution of $120,000 from the private individual as part of the process will change the budget bottom line.
So, Councillor Goldsworthy, you want to answer that? But before you do, I actually would make a comment to that. Oh, did you want to answer it, Councillor? Having asked questions about this in relation to the issue that Councillor Gaffney has raised, it's very clear that because of a resolution of council in the February meeting, that has been an agreement with that lease is being entered into. Therefore, we must actually put that money into the budget as it's been a resolution of council. If, of course, that changes, then we would change the budget if need be. But at this stage, in a draft budget, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that all the things that we expect to happen are in that budget. And of course, budgets are always predictive, so things can change, and if they do, we have to adjust the budget accordingly. But at this point in time, that resolution has been passed by council, and the $120,000 therefore has to be in the budget.
Just one more question, Madam Mayor.
Certainly, Councillor.
And whether it goes to Councillor Trenery, it's up to him. But would you agree that it's a very tight budget, which is not a bad thing, but there is no scope at all for contingencies? And do you see that as an issue for this council?
It is a very tight budget, and it should be a very tight budget. I think that the fact that the council, and I'll speak to the motion at the same time if that's okay, I think the fact that the council resolved to stay at the level the state government set rather than going for an increase, I think is absolutely fantastic. And I don't believe that country ratepayers should pay more money than city ratepayers, which has been the case in a lot of other councils. We've stuck to our guns, which has made the budget tight. Yes, contingencies. I am not concerned about the level of contingencies. No, I would be concerned if the cash level was lower. And as you well know, I've promoted in the past that cash is king, and our cash level going up is ideal. The fact that we've got a cash, I'm not sure whether Councillor Goldsworthy pointed a cash deficit of 146,000 is not ideal, and it's a direction that we should be heading into a cash surplus later on in further budgets. But the budgets are also going to get tighter into the next few years.
So any other councillors?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? Anyone want to speak against the motion? Would you like to sum up, Councillor Goldsworthy? No? All right, so I put the motion that council endorses the draft budget for the purposes of section 127 of the Local Government Act as I outlined before. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 10.3. Councillor support and expense policy. The recommendation is that council adopts the attached Councillor Support and Expense Policy 2017. Do I have a mover for that motion? Sorry, yes, Councillor? 10.2? No, that's... 13.1. No, not up to that one yet. It's 10.3. We'll get there. Thank you, Councillor. So, would you like to recommend that councillor adopts the attached councillor support and expense policy? Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Price, and you seconding that, Councillor Trenery? All right. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Price?
Only that I hope that the policy that we've put forward reflects the what the community expectation. And I think that it does.
Thank you. Councillor Trenery, do you want to speak to that or reserve your right? Anyone want to speak against the policy? Anyone else want to speak for the policy? Councillor Trenery?
I just reflect on Councillor Price's words. It is important that we understand the obligations that we have, but also understand that all expenses that councillors produce on the Shire's behalf are necessary. Okay, thank you. Do you want to sum up, Councillor Price?
All right, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.4, Council Advisory Committee minutes. That Council receives and endorses the attached Advisory Committee minutes and endorses the officer comments. Can I get someone to move that motion? Councillor Price. And seconded, second, Councillor Shepherd. Thank you. Would you like to, anyone against? Would you like to speak to the motion?
Only, I suppose I can highlight that on the Access Committee in March, they supported the design concepts of the Martins Lane redevelopment project, which has just gone out. And it's good to see that we're using our Access Committee to check over these developments to provide access for all of our community.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd, do you want to speak as a seconder? All right, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.1, the Beechworth Lawn Tennis Club. The recommendation is that Council provides in principle approval to the relocation and develop... Sorry, my sticky label fell off. Oh, Assembly of Councillors' Records, sorry about that. But the recommendation is that Council accepts the attached Assembly of Councillors' Records. Do I have someone to move that motion? Thank you, Councillor Trenery. Someone to second? Councillor Murdoch. Anyone to speak for it? Do you wish to speak to the motion? No. Anyone against? No. I'll put the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Right, 11.1, the Beechworth Lawn Tennis Club. So the recommendation is that Council provides in principle approval to the relocation and redevelopment of new tennis facilities at the Barmutha Park precinct by the Beechworth Lawn Tennis Club to allow the club to move to the next stages of detailed design and costing of the proposed facilities, planning permit and any other formal statutory requirements or approvals, assessment of final project cost against funds available and other funding sources, and 2, receive a future report to confirm approval once those details are known. Do I have someone to move the motion? Yes. Councillor Gaffney, seconded. Councillor Goldsworthy. Anyone against the motion? Councillor, would you like to speak to the motion?
There's been consultation between the tennis club and council for, I'd say, the last 2.5 to 3 years. This has been a very thorough process. I think it's good that the sporting precinct for Beechworth is all centred around Barmutha Park, with a couple of exceptions. I think it'll be a wonderful asset, particularly for the youth and people interested in playing tennis. It'll be a world-class court, and as the secretary or president of the club said recently, it would be wonderful to have a Grand Slam player come from Indigo Shire. I recommend this recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Goldsworthy, do you wish to speak to it?
Yes, it should be a terrific new project for the Beechworth community in particular. It is driven around the need for a better standard of court because they're quite often affected by the weather, and also to develop our junior players. There was once a time where we had significant tournaments in town, and that is no longer the case. So hopeful that with the redevelopment and the sale of the existing courts, this will allow for once again a world-class facility. So I too commend this motion to the council.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Anyone against the motion? I'll put the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Item 11.2, Q Springs Water Extraction Monthly Compliance Report. The recommendation is that Council notes the Q Springs Water Extraction Facility Monitoring Report content and the action undertaken where required. Do I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Gaffney. Seconder, Councillor Murdoch. Do you wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, but it does. just a bit.
Okay, so yes.
It is something that we're constantly monitoring, and at some stage we hope that all the work that the people from Stanley and elsewhere are doing might have people think about what and how they get their water and what water we drink and what's important. So before we start using the water extracted from the ground.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Do you wish to sum up? Councillor Gaffney?
I'd just like to endorse what Councillor Murdoch says, and every month we get a report, and I think it makes everybody accountable.
Okay, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So 11.3 is the bulk water extraction planning scheme amendment, partnership with Alpine Shire Council and Towong Shire Council. The recommendation is that Council resolves to join with Alpine Shire Council and Towong Shire Council and requests authorisation from the Minister for Planning to prepare and exhibit a GC planning scheme amendment, which means changes to more than one planning scheme, to introduce a local planning policy relating to the extraction of groundwater for bottling. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Gaffney? Do I have a seconder? Councillor Trenery, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would, Madam Mayor. We need to take into account the amenity effect on agriculture, the loss of agricultural land and the environment. We need to take into account the impact on local traffic and the safety of our community. We need to take into account the number of truck movements per day and the effect on this on nearby roads, streets and residents. We need to take into account whether our road network can accommodate the truck movements, particularly in regard to the Yakandanda Bridge, where I believe an accident is waiting to happen. We must establish who pays for the damage caused to community assets, which includes our roads and infrastructure. We must take into account the amenity of the landscape. We need to ensure that appropriate infrastructure is provided or exists before a water extraction facility commences operations. To ensure that public safety and amenity will not be affected by truck movements associated with a water extraction facility. We need to ensure that the balance of land used for water extraction is used for agriculture or another use consistent with the purpose of the zone.
Thank you. And the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Trenery, sorry. I was thinking, go.
I just fully endorse Councillor Gaffney's comments. I think one of the bigger issues when myself and the other two mayors met this initial process was that there wasn't a lot we could do, and without change, there is not a lot we're going to be able to do into the future, so we need to change something. So we resolved, and I congratulate the mayor for the current mayor for continuing on with this. It's important that we have change, and as Councillor Gaffney said, is that these trucks can come up and down our roads, can wreck our bridges, and we have to pay for it. So there has to be some sort of alignment in regards to any development, in regards to truck movements, and the result that it has on Shire's budgets.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there anyone that wishes to speak against the motion? Do you wish to sum up?
I think it's very important that Alpine Shire, Towong Shire and Indigo Shire speak as one, and I'm sure there will be unity, and unity is strength.
Thank you. So I put the motion that Council resolves to join with Alpine Shire and Towong Shire to prepare to introduce a local planning policy. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So 11.4 is the election of a new member to the Indigo Shire Heritage Advisory Committee, and the recommendation is that Council appoints Ms Ali Rowe to the Indigo Shire Heritage Advisory Committee. Do I have someone to move the motion? Councillor Murdoch, seconded Councillor Price. Would you like to speak to anyone against the motion? Sorry. Oh, it's Councillor Shepherd, sorry. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Murdoch?
Just that Ali Rowe, or Mr. Ali Rowe, is a very, very competent person, and this heritage is part of her passion, and it's great to have somebody like that joining the committee, and it would be great if we could get a few more members as well, and I think there is room for a couple more members, because it is a very, very important committee. We are a heritage shire, and we certainly need people that can help us and guide us and keep us on the right track when it comes to heritage matters.
Thank you. Councillor Shepherd.
Yes, Ali's been acting as a consultant to the Chiltern Athenaeum. She's got a MA Honours in curatorship, so she's a very able member, and it's great to have her on board.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against the motion? Anyone else wish to speak for the motion? I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. 11.5, Bridge Road Brewers application to amend the permit for special events. So the recommendation is that Council 1 amends the existing permit by the addition of condition 32 to increase the licensed area to the car park area for 6 events per calendar year, one of which may extend for 2 days, with all others being single-day events only. And 2, that we issue a notice of decision to grant the amended permit as set out below. There are pages and pages of conditions for this, so I will take that as read by the councillors and ask if anyone would move the motion. Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded Councillor Price. Anyone against the motion?
I've got a couple of questions, Madam Mayor.
Certainly.
Once I hear the argument.
So would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
The Beechworth Brewery has grown over the last 11 years from a start-up enterprise to something that's an attraction to the northeast. Often it's booked out and it's hard to get a place in there. The amendment actually provides for 6 weekends a year, with one being going over 2 days for events. There are concerns around the amenity to the area. That's a policing role primarily, and their liquor licence will reflect those conditions. So I've confidence that the proprietors of this business will comply with those requirements, and that amenity concerns should be addressed to the police. I think this is good for the local economy. They're a good local employer, and I wish them well in their enterprise.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. To say that I think that when we heard from Bridge Road Brewers that they understood what the community expectation was for their venue, and the community also understood how valuable this business was to Beechworth. So I think that the amendment captures that, and I think that it's a good balance of both.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gaffney, you had some questions?
I certainly concur with what Councillor Price said and Councillor Goldsworthy. I'm just concerned that if they don't comply with these conditions, of which there's a lot, will the council enforce its conditions? The other question I've got is that on item 18, it says that a minimum of 35 car spaces are to be provided, but there's nothing to say where they would be provided, because what this is about is that all of the car parking spaces are to be used for the events. If you look on page, I think it's page 309, which shows the site plan, there's no site planning for any parking. So where is this parking going to be? In the street? And at the last festival that I saw, which occupied the car park, there were hundreds of people there. They were well behaved, but there's no parking that I can see in this report provided.
Okay, so Mark Florence, Director of Development and Community Services. I think we need some input when it's a direct question about a planning matter. That's when we ask the staff.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Two questions there. So if council officers become aware that there's been a breach of any of the conditions, then yes, enforcement proceedings is open to it. In relation to the car parking, the condition 18 actually relates to those times of the year that are outside of the 6 events that have been amended today. So in any other situation, 35 car parks need to be provided, but on the times when there are 6 events, then there's this site plan as indicated in condition 32 applies.
One more question, councillor.
So that means, what if I've got more than one question, Madam Mayor?
Have you got more than one question, councillor?
So when it's at its busiest, there's no car parks provided. Is that what you're saying? And my other question is, if there was an incident close to the brewery, is there access for emergency vehicles?
Okay, so councillor, you're asking 2 questions there. Do you want them both answered by the Director of Planning? Sure. Okay.
So the first question is, on a normal operating days, the car park provisions would be on site as well as in the normal streets. On the days that are referred to in condition 32, the 6 events, then parking would be confined to the nearby streets. In relation to emergency access, then the liquor licensing and other elements of their operations would be governed by those conditions.
I'll just add a note here that in 32.2, it does say these special events may extend into the car parking area, and this permit waives car parking requirements on the subject land for these special events only. So that's clear in the motion. So I'm going to put the motion. Anyone want to speak against it? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Passed unanimously. Thank you. So item 12.1. The establishment of the Waganya Railway Land Development Committee. The recommendation is that Council establishes the Waganya Railway Land Development Committee as an advisory committee in accordance with the Local Government Act 1989, that Council determines whether a councillor is to be appointed to the committee, that Council endorses the proposed terms of reference for the Waganya Railway Land Development Committee, that Council authorises the Chief Executive Officer to affix the common seal to the terms of reference, and that nominations be called for membership to the Waganya Railway Land Development Committee. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Gaffney, someone to second it? Councillor Price, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, could I add in point 2 that Council determines that Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Price be appointed to the committee, with Councillor Murdoch as a substitute councillor.
Right. So I'll put the motion again with those changes, so that Council determines that in point 2, Council determines that Councillor Gaffney and Councillor Price be appointed to the committee, with Councillor Murdoch as a substitute. I put the motion again. You're moving the motion? Moved by Councillor Gaffney, seconded. Councillor Price, do you want to speak to the motion?
Just briefly, Madam
Sure.
Mayor, I just think it's a wonderful thing that the Waganya community have shown such interest in the development of the railway land. They've already established toilets there and a dump point. It certainly needs a lot more work. This is a partnership between the community, council and business. Uncle Toby's have given a considerable amount of cash to this. At this stage, council, I don't believe, is out of pocket at all, although we've been maintaining the assets there and paying for the cleaning of the toilets, etc. I think it's something that Waganya needs, and I think it's got unlimited potential. And I certainly hope that the Waganya community and council will be very proud of this development.
Thank you. Councillor Price, do you wish to speak as a seconder?
Only to say that I look forward to working with the committee.
Thank you very much. Does anyone want to speak against the motion? Do you wish to sum up?
No, that's fine, thanks, Mayor.
All right, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. We're so cooperative tonight. So far. Item 13.1, the draft council plan. The recommendation is that council endorses the attached draft council plan 2017 to 2021 for the purposes of section 125 of the Local Government Act 1989. That we authorise the Chief Executive Officer to give public notice of the preparation of the draft council plan in accordance with section 1253 of the Local Government Act 1989. 3, invites any person wishing to make a submission in relation to the proposed council plan to do so prior to the 2nd of June 2017 at 5 p.m. Schedules any person wishing to be heard in support of their submission to the proposed council plan to be heard by council at a special meeting of council on the 6th of June 2017, and considers a recommendation to adopt the council plan at the June ordinary meeting of council on the 27th of June 2017. Do I have someone to move the motion?
I've
Councillor
just got
Shepherd.
some questions before it goes to motion.
You've...
Yep. You don't have to, Madam Mayor.
No,
I don't mind waiting until after it's
all right,
moved
no,
and
ask the
seconded.
questions.
On page 344, which is item 1.1.4, it talks about the Chiltern netball courts, which are fully reliant on grants, I think, and it's 750k. It's just that I notice it's not in the draft budget, and it talks about during the plan that it's got the tick for 2017-18. So will any works be commenced in 17-18?
Any works in 17-18 would be scoping works, but the project, part of the project is dependent on state government funding, and that funding would be available if we were successful in 18-19. So that's why it's not in the 17-18 budget.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to get the motion put
Oh,
first.
sure.
All right, Councillor Goldsworthy, seconded. Councillor Murdoch. Councillor Goldsworthy, do you wish to speak to the motion? Thank you.
So we've had a thorough process that's had extensive involvement and consultation with the community along the way. It's actually occupied a lot of staff time as well in preparation of this document. It's the most important process that we as council will undertake. We'll set the direction of the council for the next 4 years, from which our budgets will be drawn, totalling roughly $120 million of expenditure over those 4 years. The adoption of this draft is an opportunity for further feedback from the community. The listening post will be held over the next 3 weeks and will be an ideal opportunity for the community to help us to make sure we get this right. So it doesn't get any more important for us in relation to this council plan, and I recommend it to the council to adopt.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to speak as a seconder?
Yes, thank you. I'm just drawing people's attention to point 3, which invites any person wishing to make a submission in relation to the proposed council plan to do so prior to June the 2nd, 2017, and we also have all the other hearings that go with it. But it is important that people do look at this draft plan and see how it's going to work for the whole Shire. But if people have ideas, and if they have ideas that they think are reasonable and rational, please put them in. It's, you know, or if they think there's something that we've missed somewhere along the line, please put them in. It's a council plan for the whole of the Shire, and we need people to have a look at it and say what they think. And if they think it's a good plan, let us know that too.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak to the plan, to the motion? Sorry, Councillor Shepherd.
I just wanted to add that the listening post dates, I know, Larry, you had told people that they're on, but just that the dates are the 6th of May, the 13th of May and the 20th of May, and there'll be councillors and there'll be staff at those meetings, so we welcome people to come along and give us their feedback. And the first one on the 6th of May will be at Beechworth outside the post office, and also at Waganya outside the post office between 10 and 12. The next one's on the 13th of May between 10 and 12 at Rutherglen, outside the IGA and at Chiltern outside the IGA. And then the last one on the 20th of May, same time, 10 till 12, at Yakandanda outside the news agency, and at Kiwar Tangambalanga outside the Tangam store post office. So hopefully you'll, all those people watching as well will also turn up, and that will also be on their webpage because you won't necessarily have got it from my ramblings. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? Councillor Trenery, did you want to speak to the motion? I'll come back to you.
With a little bit of indulgence as well, Madam Mayor, because
Certainly.
I neglected something earlier. So the council plan is obviously linked very closely to the budget and has a great effect on the budget. So I'd probably, as Chairman of the Finance Committee, I'd just like to mention a lot of hard work went into that budget, and I'd like to congratulate Phil Garoni, Manager of Finance, and of course Greg Pinkleton, Director of Corporate Services, in regards to the work they did with the budget. Well
Yes,
done,
good.
congratulations.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also in regards to the council plan, something that was in the budget from the council plan was the Beechworth to Yakandenda rail trail. Now, 3 years ago, I was lucky enough to move a motion to make this a priority in the rail trails, and I'd just like to congratulate all the staff members that have progressed it right through to the budget. And I understand there was a discussion at the Victorian budget today, but no figures. So, but congratulations to all the staff that were involved in that. It's really, they've done a fantastic job to lift it from the council plan into the budget.
So I'll just add to that it is subject to the funding, and we're still waiting to hear, but fingers crossed, we're waiting. There was an announcement today that money was to be allocated to cycling infrastructure in the northeast, but we don't know the dollars, so we're waiting to hear on that. But it is great to hear that at least there's some kind of recognition for that.
It does, and I mean, it shows the amount of, a huge amount of work has taken from the council plan
Absolutely.
to this point. So
Yep.
it's just acknowledgement of the staff that were involved in that, especially the CEO, who has worked hard on this project.
Yes,
So,
thank you, Councillor.
Thank you for the indulgence.
Pleasure.
And Roberta as well, of course.
Yes. Okay, now, Councillor Gaffney, you had some questions?
Yes, I was just wondering about that, that bike track between Beechworth and Yakandanda, which I think it's really good. But is it in the state government budget, Councillor Trenery? Is that what you were alerting to? Is it in the state budget?
As I understood, they announced it as a priority, but no dollars was attached to it. Was the only information that
That's
I've
correct.
received.
The rail line between Albury and Melbourne's a priority, but I don't think there's money for it. But anyway, I'm very, very happy for that. Very happy.
Do you need me to
And
comment on the
genuinely
railway
happy.
line, or?
All right, I'm going to
No,
keep you
no.
guys on to the actual
I've been
issue that we're
asked
talking
to
about,
raise
which is, just let
in-
me finish, the motion around the draft council plan. Right.
With item 1.1.4, which talks about the Chiltern Netball Court, are there any other sporting facilities mentioned in the plan specifically?
Not specifically at this point. We are about to undertake a recreation plan which will look at a whole range of sport and recreation opportunities, programs and facility development, and that plan will be critical for the future planning in that recreation space. So that's where the individual projects will emanate from.
Thank you.
Thank you, because I was specifically asked to raise the Wurundjeri Tennis Court and Lake Moodamere rowing facility. So if people wanted to get that into the council plan, they'd first need to get it onto the recreational plan. Is that right?
So those two projects that you identified will be considered at the next council meeting in terms of being put forward for grants for the 18-19 year. But in extension of your other question, yes, if people have desires for their facilities to be included in development opportunities, then the recreation plan is the place for it to be identified.
Okay, thank you. Can anyone else want to speak to the motion? Councillor Goldsworthy, do you wish to sum up? All right, I'm going to put the motion so that council endorses the attached draft council plan 2017 to 2021. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. So item 14.1. We have two notices of motion tonight. The first one is regarding Woolshed Road. So, Councillor Goldsworthy, would you like to move this? Yep. You can move it. Do you want to read it out? It's your motion. Sorry, do you want to read the motion or do you want me to read it? Oh, okay, fine. So the motion is that within 3 months, the CEO presents a report to the ordinary meeting of council which details the following: the general condition of Woolshed Road with reference to the Maloney's assessment, what, if any, works need to be undertaken to bring it up to appropriate design standards for the category of road that it is, the average cost per kilometre to grade the road, the ideal frequency of grading a road, how often Woolshed Road is graded, what work would have to be undertaken to bring the Woolshed Road from Sugarloaf Lane to the start of the bitumen that leads onto the Chiltern Beechworth up to conditions suitable to be sealed and at what cost, what would the cost per kilometre of laying bitumen on the Woolshed Road be, where does the Woolshed Road sit in the priorities of road in the Indigo Shire for repair, rebuild and having bitumen laid, what criteria was used to make the above assessment, what is the annual budget for undertaking this type of roadworks, and any other information the Director for Infrastructure Services believes relevant in this matter. Would you like to move that motion, Councillor? Would you like to, a seconder for the motion? Councillor Trenery, would you like to speak to the motion? Go ahead.
So, Council has been petitioned, quite literally, since July of last year, where Council received that petition. It was one that wasn't garnered for all signatures that could be put on there, but more those that actually use the road. Since then, the Council has been asked a number of questions in relation to Woolshed Road by concerned citizens. I believe this is in part a step towards us listening to what their concerns are, getting a detailed report on it. It actually has implications for the wider community so that we know how the priorities are made within council as to the criteria around getting a road sealed or not. I also believe that it gives us the ability to manage expectations, because our roads need to be built in line with what our council plan has, what our council procedures have, and the funding that we have at our disposal. And as much as we might like to seal every dirt and gravel road that's not quite up to standard, the money just isn't there. So I think this is a way forward for us, and if we get a thorough report on the condition of Woolshed Road, at least we'll be able to talk with those that are concerned about it.
Okay. Do you wish to speak as a seconder, Councillor Trenery? Anyone else want to speak to the motion? Anyone against the motion? All right, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. So, item 14.2, the Indigo Gold Heritage. So, Councillor Gaffney, do you wish to speak to this motion? Do you wish to put the motion?
Yes, I will, Madam Mayor. The motion is that Indigo Shire Council requests persons with knowledge and expertise in the history of gold mines and gold history in Indigo Shire to give a presentation to Council.
Right. Anyone want to speak to the motion? Do you want to speak to it, Councillor?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. On Sunday the 23rd of April, the Mayor and I were invited to a tour of heritage gold mining sites on the Stanley Plateau. We visited the Wallaby Gold Mine, the Stamping Battery and the Rechabite Gold Mine. I was in awe of the ingenuity and hard work of the men and women of the 1850s looking for their fortune in life. They found over 100 tonnes of gold in these mines, which in today's money would be well over $5 billion. These sites are almost inaccessible and are dangerous to visit without the leadership of somebody who has knowledge of these sites. We also visited the entrance of the Rocky Mountain Gold Sluicing Company tunnel that runs under the township of Beechworth from Lake Sambell to the Beechworth Gorge. I'm told you can walk the length of the tunnel, which is currently closed for safety reasons, but could be easily made safe. I know there are other sites in Indigo Shire that are worthy of being part of this presentation. They include the Magenta mine in Chiltern and the Gold Battery at Rutherglen. There are endless opportunities for ecotourism, heritage tourism and Indigenous tourism. I ask for your support for this motion.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion to second? Go for it.
So there are many tiers to our tourism in the northeast of Victoria, and this is but one of them. I think it's an important aspect of them, and I believe that with our tourism strategy, once it comes out, that this should be one leg of that strategy. So I think that we should hear from those that have the knowledge around our gold history, and then we can fully understand where we should place it in the list of priorities and do so strategically.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Yeah, Councillor Shepherd?
Back when I was in my 20s, we used to bring the Year 8 boys from Wodonga Technical School, which sounds like a nightmare, and it really was, to all the special places around Beechworth that celebrated gold, because we used to do a gold project with them, and we'd pile them all into Hilda the bus and bring them all around. And Quentin Mansfield, who I still think lives in this... Sorry, go. You blocked me there? I am going on so, but... we went to all those places. We went through the mine that's now closed with, 60 or so kids screaming all the way through. And we went to the batteries, and they were all accessible back then because it was quite a while ago. And I've always been very aware of what we've got here, that we are really just letting go and get covered with grass. And there's all the races as well, and so much for us to celebrate in gold history that I know it's a cost and I know there's risk, but it's certainly something that we need to look into. Thanks.
Anyone else wish to speak to that motion? Do you wish to sum up? Can I get you just to repeat it so that Michelle is able to record it accurately?
That council requests persons with knowledge and expertise in heritage gold mines and gold history in Indigo Shire to give a presentation to council.
Thank you, Councillor. So I put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. So item 15.1 is the mayoral diary. It's there for the councillors to see, and I believe it's on the website. If anyone wants to look at it, you're welcome to ask me questions from the councillors. Any questions?
Just ask a question about
Certainly.
citizenship ceremony. Sure, I saw something in the paper about it.
We had a citizenship ceremony here. I think you came along to it for a Beechworth resident, and I haven't got her name in front of me, I'm sorry, but yes, it was a ceremony here on June the 14th.
Yeah, no, that
Remember?
was, well,
You came
yeah,
to it.
I did too. No,
Yeah.
I was thinking of it as something different.
Sure.
But it was, I can remember, it was really lovely, and the person who was taking her citizenship was absolutely thrilled. And
She was.
I'm always in awe of how proud they are.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Was sorry? Thank you. Any other questions? I think I would just like to comment that Anzac Day, as always across the Shire, was just a wonderful day. Every community came out and did a wonderful job in honouring the day. I was at the Beechworth ceremony, as always, incredibly moving to see people marching down the street and the huge turnout on such a terrible day, really, weather-wise, and I believe that was the case right across the Shire. So I just want to make, I guess for me, that was a real highlight of the things that have happened recently. So thank you. General business. Do I have any business from the councillors? Start with Councillor Shepherd.
So recently we had the Yackandandah Folk Festival, and there was a big problem with European wasps. And it's been happening now for the last, probably 10 years or so. And each time there's been a concerted effort by the Yackandandah community to rid themselves of the wasps. And this year I asked for Phil Newman, who's involved in YCDCO, he's on the board, to give me a bit of an idea of what they did. And they had to, 2 weeks beforehand on their own really, they did a whole baiting system, and it was quite intensive what they did. One of the singers asked for someone to stand beside them with an EpiPen because there were so many wasps around that they were concerned they would need to be given the EpiPen if they were bitten. So I think it's quite an issue. I don't know, I'm trying to find out whether it's within the Shire itself or whether it's just around the Yackandandah area, but other people can tell me that. But I'm just wondering whether we need to investigate the European wasp problem within, at least to begin with, Yackandandah, and perhaps get Phil Newman and that committee that worked on the wasps there to come and give us a briefing on what they did, and maybe some suggestions as to what we could assist them with as a council that may assist the whole of the Shire. And I think it's a tourism issue and it's an economic business issue too. So I'm asking for your support in doing that investigation and perhaps a briefing.
Okay, so we'll refer that to Ian Ellen. All right, thanks Ian. Any other general business? Councillor Goldsworthy.
I would just like to acknowledge the support and the professionalism of Michelle Delivirgin, who will be leaving us prior to the next council meeting, from what I understand, to go into private enterprise. And thank you very much for all your service. I'm sure the Mayor will have further to say about it, but I just want to acknowledge publicly that you do a terrific job, and thank you.
Thank you. I would actually like to add to that Michelle has the unenviable task of being the EA to Mayor and councillors, which means she has to work with me nearly every day and has to sort out the many things that I get confused about and lose times on and all the things that I do. And she's been incredibly patient and very, very efficient and just a truly delightful person to work with. So we wish you well, Michelle, and I will miss you very much, and I think you've done an outstanding job in the role. Thank you. So another clap. Sure.
We're aware that Wholesome will be making a further application for an extension on their permit, and I just wonder if we could get a report from the CEO prior to that coming to us, or concurrent to that coming to us, in relation to releasing the costs that council incurred around defending the application on the last occasion.
So, Councillor, you're referring to the Skeleton Hill Quarry?
That's correct.
Yes. Yes, CEO?
Yes, so through the Mayor. So you're looking for a separate report, Councillor?
Just a very brief,
or
very
an update?
briefly around, it's still sitting in confidential.
Yep.
And it would be nice for the community to know the sum of the support which was given by the council at the time. And I'm not looking to throw that on the table now, but it would be nice that we're informed of the pros and cons of doing that prior to making a decision on the upcoming extension.
Okay. We will sort of look at when the actual application is coming to council, and we'll make sure that there's something that is brought, ideally beforehand, to advise that that cost, or alternatively, we'll make sure that it's included overtly in the consideration.
Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd, you had another issue?
I had an email from a resident saying that, congratulating us on live streaming, and asked then, would we be looking at allowing people to put questions to our open forum, seeing they will be able to watch the live streaming and see the results of their question elsewhere within the community. So for people who may not have difficulty getting here, whether they'd be able to put a question to the forum without being here. And at the moment, our local law 3 does not allow that. It says you need to be here. And I think it's an interesting question. A whole lot of things are being brought up to us now that we're live streaming, and I suggest that we need to look at our live streaming and that such a question as was given to me, and perhaps look at our local law 3. In due course is probably the word I'm looking for.
Okay.
Thanks. Oh, and one more thing. You may have read in the paper that the Foodworks Yakandanda is not going to be having plastic bags anymore. So I'd just like to congratulate Plastic Wise Yakandanda and say that's a great thing for our Plastic Wise Indigo outlook. Thanks.
Yep. It's fantastic to hear that, and let's hope that we see the same thing happen with other supermarkets and businesses around the Shire. Any other general business? Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of the meeting. So I'd like to thank you all for coming, and we'll see you at the next meeting, which I don't have the date in front of me, 30th of May. Thank you very much, and good evening.